I'd like to welcome up to the stage Alexandra Villak, who is the president and publisher of the Miami Herald Company. Now, check this out. She is newly appointed. She has been in the job, it's going to like a month today, right? 4 weeks today. So give her a hand for taking over a new position. Number one. Number two. She told me, and I thought that this was fascinating, that the Miami Herald has actually been on the forefront of using technology at least from the 80s, and she's going to probably tell you a little bit about it, but like using technology to kind of move publishing and move the dispensation of information forward is built into the DNA of the Miami Herald Company. So she's going to be hosting a panel with Seth Rogen and Ari Tarsdal. They're going to be talking about multi-platform media from the inside, the global digital leaders. And with that, I'll let her take it over.
All right. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
All right. Come on up, guys. Then we'll go through. Good afternoon. Did everybody enjoy the food trucks? All right. Well, thank you for food trucks. There you go. All right. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for this panel, and a special thanks to our two panelists. I think you're going to find them certainly engaging and cutting edge.
Am I on? I like that the level was set as I hope you're awake.
Well, we'll try to keep you all awake. The diversity of platforms today is radically changing where and how content is being consumed and is impacting marketing and ad content delivery. By all estimates, 2014 will be the year that mobile devices will become the dominant screen for media consumption. As of today, mobile screens account for 44% of the total minutes spent consuming media, and it's changing how we present content. Before I go ahead and turn it over to our featured speakers, I really wanted to share a little bit of the story of the Miami Herald Media Company that Denise mentioned. That gives you a sense of what shapes us today. And I'm going to take you back into ancient history, the 1980s. Most people think of us as a newspaper company, but in the early 1980s, the Miami Herald partnered with AT&T to launch in Miami what was at that point considered one of the boldest experiments in new media. It was a consumer video text system that allowed home consumer users access to news, shopping, and entertainment. That was pretty innovative for 1984. It was a huge departure to how you viewed the delivery of typical media. It was called Viewtron. For any of you that want to search it, there's a great YouTube out there on the wonders of a dial-up that you got your information the night before. The system required, like I said, to lease a terminal at a very expensive price to connect to a TV to display the images. The advent of the PC made Viewtron obsolete. So 6 years of research and $50 million later, we pulled the plug on Viewtron. But what's important about this failed experiment is how it set the stage for what we at the Miami Herald view the compelling need to always be looking at alternative means to deliver our content. It's not about the platform, it's about our content. And that shift has led us to invest very deeply in resources with stronger websites, mobile apps, devices, social media networks. We have a digital inventory right now of over 70 interactive products and services. And we offer our clients everything from responsive design, site and search retargeted, real-time bidding, reputation intelligence, and management tools. We don't necessarily develop this software, but we partner with the best in class in the business to deliver this to our advertisers. On a monthly basis, our products reach and engage with over 9.2 million unique visitors. Nothing like the 39 million that Seth and Mashable have, but for a small regional power company here, we do okay with 9.2 million. But our success comes from identifying that the audience consumes news and information and we need to adapt in this ever-evolving digital space. And it's constant. So today we have two people that are leaders in recognizing that demand and how to stay ahead by understanding how content is consumed and the impact that big data has in marketing and advertising for content delivery. I'm first going to introduce Ari Tarsdal, founder and CEO of TapPad. TapPad provides cross-device content delivery to consumers, as well as information to publishers and advertisers about mobile consumer behaviors. Ari has more than 15 years of experience in mobile and digital content and is a frequent technology contributor to media outlets such as CNBC and Bloomberg News. Before TapPad, he founded Thumbplay, a mobile entertainment service that was acquired by Clear Channel, and you now know it as iHeartRadio. Last year, Ari was named one of Business Insider's most important people in mobile advertising.
Did my mom write that?
And he also lives in Miami, as
Yeah,
I
live
found
in
out.
Miami, exactly.
We're also honored to have on our panel Seth Rogen, Chief Revenue Officer at Mashable, a leading and influential source of online news and information for 39 million unique visitors worldwide. He was previously Vice President of Advertising at the New York Times, where for more than a decade he led the sales operations for the Times' global businesses in a wide variety of cross-platform categories. He was also responsible for the sales and operations of all mobile and tablet devices, the New York Times Magazine, one of my personal favorites to read on a Sunday, and T, the company's style magazine, including the development and highly successful launch of the magazine's website. Seth was just named one of the only 2 leaders in the media industry to be a finalist for the Chief Revenue Officer of the Year by Media Industry Newsletter, a prize that will be given out in New York next month. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start with Ari and ask you, today's challenge for publishers and advertisers is dealing with how fractured audiences have become across so many devices. You've commented that it's about continuous content, continuous creative, and continuous commerce. How do you see the opportunity for media companies and advertisers to provide content and information in this landscape where people are on multiple devices and platforms consuming information, and sometimes they're doing it simultaneously?
Yeah, I think kind of to add to some of the stats around this, just so everybody sees what the challenge is and what the opportunities are. We have some stat that consumers jump between screens 27 times an hour. So you go from your phone to your tablet, computer, phone, tablet, computer, while you're in front of television. And that has certainly changed since the 80s or the 90s even, where consumers primarily were on one screen at a time. So we, as a company, work with about 200 of the largest brands in the US. So we kind of, I bet they are the ones that are financing all of our lunches here. So it's important to understand what they are thinking. So the big trend, I think, seeing from the advertisers now is that they don't want these kind of bottom-up, running a little bit of mobile over here on one publisher, then a little bit of tablet over here on different publishers. As consumers are jumping between screens, the advertisers really want to see this from a customer perspective, from a holistic perspective. I know that it's one consumer on multiple devices, and the ability then to run across 18, 20, 25,000 different publishers. After you have identified that this consumer is now most likely in the market for a product. Most advertising is wasted. And it's wasted because you don't start out with the notion of actually finding a consumer that has shown some kind of interest. That's the reason Google works well. I search for trip to Mexico, I see a trip to Mexico, and this very strong data-driven approach to marketing is what the big brands do. And once they found that consumer, they want to make sure that they reach the same consumer across multiple screens. So that's definitely the big thing that we're seeing from the big finance companies, the big telco companies, the big retailers.
Okay. So, Ari, I'm sorry, I promised you I'd interrupt. And
no,
I can't
come on,
resist.
please.
So when you talk about that and the idea that people are buying across 25,000 sites, which is mind-blowing, right? How important is environment in all of that in terms of for brands, right? So when we think of classic legacy marketing, it's something like what Alex is working on, right, which is Miami Herald, which is such an esteemed publication, and now is digitally seen around the world, right, and is certainly growing its space. To me, it matters that my brand is seen in the Miami Herald, and the fact that I might reach the exact same consumer somewhere else doesn't necessarily have the same caliber of impact for me.
No, I agree. You never get away from the context Is this on? There we go. The context itself matters a ton. So if you can, one, have the best advertising experience possible, number two, be in the best context and reach the consumer, that's when the advertisers are willing to pay 300% to 1,000% more. It's actually also much better for the publisher because the publisher are able to charge much more for that type of media, especially if you have a premium brand like the Miami Herald or Mashable.
You know, Seth already mentioned big data and all this massive amount of information that we have today that allows us to serve content and advertising at the right place and time. How do you use big data in what you do at Mashable, and what do you think should be the standards to measure performance in terms of where you place content and advertising?
So I've come to the belief that I really don't care how big your data is if you don't know how to use it. And you know, there really is, thank you, person in the front. Thank you. We'll be having the vulgar panel later on today. But I really do believe that. I think that there is a world out there, and Ari's business stands alone in the fact that it is able to employ data so well and so effectively for so many businesses. But I think there are a lot of us out there in the media industry overall who have what I like to call PTSD, not post-traumatic stress disorder, but publishers that suffered disorder. The publishers who, in the last downturn between the emergence of digital media and the sinking of the economy, all at once decided that they will simply panic and go to whatever the next trend is. And so they're all going to decide now that big data is important. Whether or not they have it, they're going to claim they have it. And when they have it, most of them don't know what the heck to do with it. So I'm going to take the big or the small data. I just spoke at a conference called Small Data. They didn't know what that was either. But let's talk about data for a second, because there is something that's very important, both in what Ari's business does and what we do. So Mashable, as we discussed, is a site for about 39 million people a month. We're growing very fast. It's a really exciting time to be there. Data comes into everything that we do, but it comes into making us better at what we do, not just in terms of targeting. Right? The targeting is an important piece. So we have a system called Velocity that actually is able to look at data and forecast whether or not stories published by anyone around the world will go viral. And so that helps us in terms of giving alerts to our journalists, because our journalists know about a story that might go viral 8 hours from now. Something that got published overnight in Hong Kong, our journalists are going to get an alert that'll be on their phone when they wake up in the morning to say, you might want to look at this. That's one piece. The other piece is that right now, if you look at Mashable, if you go on the site, and I hope a lot of you do, if not, let's get some new readers today, right? Didn't I say I was getting up here and not sell anything?
You have 39 million and one.
So,
once an ad,
two,
once
three,
an ad, always an ad.
So chief revenue, right. So Mashable is actually divided into 3 columns to give you some idea how you can see how the data gets used right now. The first column is every story that we publish in chronological order. And then you'll see there are headers on the next 2 columns. One is called the next big thing, and the next column is called what's hot. And that's actually our system Velocity forecasting whether or not those stories will go viral or not. And so the algorithm is actually laying out the homepage. And so that doesn't mean that human beings are not involved. We actually are more, we have more journalists than we have business people at Mashable. That's important. And our newsroom is growing on a regular basis. It'll probably almost double in size over the next 2 years. But what I think is key is that we're using the science of data to make us smarter communicators. And then the last piece, and if there are marketers in the audience, and Ari, you and I think can probably agree on this, is that data makes you a smarter storyteller and a smarter marketer. And so for us as content marketers, right, because we're both publishers and marketers of our own brand, there are a lot of places where you can do paid content marketing right now, right? Whether it's in the social media realm or some of the other folks that franchise and syndicate content. But that's an expensive thing to do for a growing startup like mine. So we actually use Velocity to look at our own content and say, these are the stories that will take off. They're worth investing some money in doing content marketing. And so my content marketing compared to one of my big competitors, the content marketing budget was less than 1%, even though we grew our audience by 40%. Because data makes us smarter. It doesn't make us better storytellers, but it makes us smarter storytellers.
Ari, taking that growth and that searching for all that content and the explosive growth, Mashable, you were saying, Seth, has gone from 24 million to 39 million
in about a year.
In about a year. My bet is that growth is all in mobile. And what do you see, Ari, in terms of the use of different devices affecting content consumption, and how can media companies and advertisers monetize these opportunities in mobile more effectively?
Yeah, so that's the other side of our business, on the publisher side. And this fabulous growth in mobile, a lot of people are going to lose their job because of that. What do I mean by that? The 22, 23-year-old person who's had a mobile are excited. Every time they see the mobile curve shoot up to the right, the ones that is 45 and just bought a house and...
Are you pointing at me as you say
actually, that's 45, Chief Revenue Officer. No, somebody else.
Elijah.
that see this tremendous growth in mobile, excited about it, but we also have to remember for the ones that are sitting on the publisher side is very often now after 15 years, CPMs on the computer, the cost that you sell your advertising for can be $10, $15. On mobile, for many, many publishers, the CPM on mobile is $1, $1.50. And we spoke about this before, so that's a tenth of what you're getting on a computer. And we spoke about this a little bit before, and you see close to 50% mobile traffic now, and we have a lot of publishers that see 50, 60, 70% mobile traffic. So it is shifting from something that they're making money on over to something that they're making much less money on, which is causing stress.
So why do you think that is?
I think for a couple of reasons. One is they...
I'm sorry, you don't mind that I'm hosting?
No,
this
go right ahead.
Make your job very easy.
I feel like I get to be in the audience and
I think it's a couple of reasons. One, publishers, the traditional publishers at least, haven't figured out really how to monetize mobile yet. They haven't applied the bigger ad units that have a much more impact on the consumers. And B, they haven't really had a cross-device offering. So, and they haven't been able to provide these really targeted environments. And there's so much inventory so that the advertisers are sitting on the other side and kind of cherry-picking the best of the inventory. So,
do you see anything different between how consumers are using and acting on mobile in the US versus Europe or Latin America? Are there any differences that you can point to that can help marketers? Because there's a lot of Latin Americans in the market.
Sure. So yes, more than half of you're absolutely right, more than half of our audience accesses us on mobile at this point. Particularly, I think the commonly held thinking is that the Latino market is more focused on mobile devices. I think that will change over time. I think the bigger question, and that's why I'm so interested in what Ari is saying, is that I believe the word mobile will go away. That this idea that a desktop or a laptop, my laptop is very mobile, it came with me on the plane to come here. I had it plugged in next to my iPhone, next to my iPad. I mean, I look like a brand lab traveling, right? And yet, all of these things are mobile, and I don't delineate in my mind between them. And I don't think that one ad on one of those platforms is less impactful than the other. What I think is interesting and what Ari was saying was about that smart publishers have not figured out, many publishers have not figured out how to make that transition. And so what we do is we rebuild, we scrapped the entire website about a year ago, Mashable in terms of design, and redesigned it essentially as an app, what's called Ruby on Rails. It's an app that lives on your computer, but it's not downloaded the way an app normally would be. But the site, when you get it on your browser, actually redesigns itself to the exact size of your window, whether that's on a phone, it's responsive design, whether that's on your phone, your tablet, what have you. And so we were actually, our servers in the last month were touched by a little over 5,000 different device profiles. So what does that mean? That's every phone, if you can imagine, in the universe. Each one of them has different downloads of different OSs. Each one has different screens, different browsers on each different one. And so with 5,000 different devices touching your server, your site has to respond to that. And so we're not focused necessarily on saying that it's a different experience between mobile and desktop, because I think all those lines will go away. What happens is that you have to deliver a valuable enough experience on the mobile device so that it's worth paying for. Because I don't think brands are saying, well, there's a lot of inventory out there, and therefore I should pay less. I think what they're saying is, I don't really believe in mobile, so I'm going to pay a lot less for it. And so we actually don't divide that at all. It's one price for wherever your ad delivers, and our business is growing quite dramatically. And so I think that's working, but it's on us to deliver a high-powered advertising experience and a better reader experience for the reader.
We were talking before the panel about right now the hot new thing is video and pre-roll. And there was a great article yesterday in the New York Times about the Unwatched, which talked about how the jump in the growth of money into video. But as you're looking at the tracking, it's probably the consumer experience is not the best. What do you see as the future for video? Is this something that we're just feeling our way, or will it's the hot thing right now and we'll...
Are you asking me?
Either one of you.
Well, I think so in this whole seeing it from a consumer perspective, you need, as a brand, as a marketer, as a publisher, you need to be able to cross through all the different screens and all the different formats, right? So in delivering a full experience to an advertiser, it might start out with a video, but then you need to follow up on a different screen in a different format, and then you follow up on a third screen in a third format, and then you actually get people into a store to buy the product. We have one advisor to our company who is one of the top guys at one of the agencies, and he has this fabulous stat that they measured people going to a store, and they asked them, what are you going to buy in the store? And this is after all the marketing had happened, everything had actually gotten the consumer to the store. So in the store, it's outside of the store, they asked them, what are you going to buy? And they wrote down, they're going to buy the cornflakes, they're going to buy soap, they're going to buy this, that, and like the whole thing. And then they asked the same consumer on the way out, what did you actually buy? And there's a 60% discrepancy between what the consumer thought they were going to buy and what they actually ended up buying. So it just shows that you need to influence the consumer until they are at the cash register, and don't believe that you can drop them off at the front of the door and that they will actually buy your product. In that, you can use video, you can use location-based targeting, you can do everything, but you need to start out with the goal of getting this consumer to actually do the desired action for the advertiser. And when that measurement is in place, then you can really charge much, much more for your mobile advertising, because that's what the consumer is carrying around in the store, is their phone. They're not carrying around other devices, they're carrying around their mobile device. So that's when you deliver the content to them in that store.
And Seth, in terms of content, I know that in Mashable, traditional display ads account for the largest portion of your revenue, but we were talking about, is there a shift to branded content, native advertising? In the old print world, we just called it advertorial. Do you see that as a potential for delivering content at the moment of purchase about a particular brand?
Sure. I mean, I think every publisher right now is looking for different monetizing streams, and therefore they're rushing right now to what they call native. I would like to ask all of you to join me in my crusade to get rid of the word native in the marketing business. I think it means absolutely nothing, or the problem is that it means everything to everyone. And so on one site, buying a native bit of advertising, which is branded content, for those of you who've been engaged in the media business, right, that might mean on one site that the brand gets to decide exactly what's written about them. And on the next site that has higher standards, it might mean that the brand has no influence whatsoever, but might have said, this is an area of interest, we might sponsor it if you have the content. And so I think the word is deceptive, but I think the product is highly valuable. And the best thing that we can be is truly transparent about that. So while our business is still very much reliant on display advertising, about 30% of our total revenue is in branded content. And so I think it's a key factor in terms of being transparent with the reader, because the first time you fool a reader is the last time you see them. And so my job, having worked at a newspaper for a very long time, is to realize that, at least in my world now, the power is no longer with the presses. The power is with the credible. And so my most important asset is the trust of the people who come to us every day to find out what's happening in the world. Now, they're not coming to us necessarily to find out all of the things that they're coming to us to find out about on the Miami Herald. People come to Mashable because they want to find out what's new, what's next, what's exciting in the world. And I view my amazing 28-year-old boss, Pete Cashmore, who started the company when he was 19, I view Pete sort of as this generation's Jan Wenner. Right, in that if you think of Jan Wenner looking at Rolling Stone, he looked in the late 60s and said, music is no longer something that I just listen to or a concert that I go to. It's a lens through which I view the world. And to me, that's what Pete has done. So we are now viewing the world. Mashable started as a tech blog, and now it is so much more than that, and it's becoming a lens of the internet through which you can see the world. If you think that music was the driving creative force of the 60s, and I would make the point that the web and digital media is the driving cultural force of today. And so that's where we want to be, is the voice of digital culture in that way. And so imagine if we were to make the foolish mistake of trying to fool people. And newspapers have done it well for a long time, right? Calling it advertorial, exactly what you said. In fact, there would be battles over how many times you have to say it on a page. This supplement is brought to you, and it never had anyone in the editorial even enter the room while it was being created. And so the more of that we can do, there is no overkill in being honest. Let's make sure that the industry is doing that. And so that's why I think the word native should go away. End of preaching. Sorry. But just to come back one other thing to what you were saying, Ari, I think that we're in this, I'm not done, I think that we're in the stone age of video online. I think that you're going to see a lot of the big companies that are in video right now that are sort of the multi-channel networks go out of business because they are 100% reliant on other people to deliver their video, and those other people want a bigger and bigger and bigger piece of their dollar and are never willing to relinquish that bigger and bigger piece, nor should they. They are public companies. And so long as your business is ever 100% reliant on someone else to connect you with a consumer, you are doomed to fail. And that's where I think a lot of the video business is about to change. And so it will come back to publishers and to real brands to create video. I want more video on our site. We're going to continue to create it. We never have enough. We love the video we have, but we want to invest more and more. We're moving, as we were discussing before, we're moving into a new headquarters, and it has a full film studio. Right now, we have a Vine studio. We have a young man, actually, if you go on, I don't know how many of you are on Snapchat. You can admit it. Thank you, sir. I thought I recognized you. We have a young man whose job is just to create Snapchat video, short-form video, because you can actually get valuable content. It's not what you thought Snapchat was. It's really a quick way to stream video. You hold your thumb down, see a video for 30 seconds, find out what's happening in the world, release your thumb, and it's deleted off your phone. And so it's seeing value and new ways to deliver video that I think are really key.
Ari, I know that last week there was a consumer research study that you had commissioned that was just published, and the study centered around the purchase path between devices. Anything surprising in the results that you can share with us?
Yeah, it was very encouraging for everyone in digital, which was that 66%. This is a Forrester consumer report that we paid for, and they so 66% of consumers, they consulted their digital devices before making a purchase. They consulted their phones, the tablets, and then their computers, and in any kind of combination thereof. And 27% had used some offline media, which was television or going to a store to speak with the person there. But 66%, I found that to be an amazing number, which is fabulous for all of us, hopefully, in the audience here who's in digital. So with that comes a lot of opportunities, I think, for the brands to create these true cross-platform experiences. We have some other data that shows that about 40% of purchases happen on a different device than where you did your research. So you start out, you're on your phone, you're waiting for your late friends in a restaurant, and then you're looking at the phone, but then you go back to your computer 3-4 days later, and you actually purchase the product unaided. So there's a lot of cross research that happens through multiple devices, and people either buying that product in a physical store or on a computer. So as a tons and tons of opportunity. I 100% agree with your native by the way, and also with mobile. I've been speaking at mobile conferences now back to back for the last 3 years, and always said that I don't believe there will be a mobile conference, but I still get invited back to the mobile conferences for some reason. But everybody who has anything mobile in their name or in their conference or in their company name or anything in a title, we should get out of that, because there is not, it's not going to be mobile. It's going to be about the consumer who happens to be a mobile consumer on second 1, tablet consumer on second 5, and then so you can't organize it around this particular platform of mobile. So, but it's all going to be cross-screen, cross-platform, and it's amazing to see the growth of Mashable and these companies that have really figured out how to use the social media to provide real good experiences for the consumers across multiple devices and go from 0 to 30, 40 million. There are a couple of more stories like that out there and others as well, maybe not as good, but there are a lot of companies that I haven't heard of or people in the advertising industry haven't heard of. Mashable is not one of those, but that have gone from 0 to 10 million uniques, and there are 5 guys in a loft in New York. And it's very encouraging to see how this whole ecosystem is exploding.
Well, thank you. What I wanted to do is take the last few minutes to open it up to the floor and see if you have any questions for Seth and Ari. Anybody with questions? There we go. I think there's... Oh, is there a mic?
Well, with the actual results,
Here you can talk into this.
So the actual results,
Interesting.
have you
There's a
seen the
photo of that.
difference in performance?
Sorry, I don't think we heard the question.
Denise, come back because we didn't hear the question.
Oh,
Have you seen the difference in performance between mobile and online? Because I know there's a difference in pricing. You mentioned like 10 times more. But the actual results, when you measure them, conversion, etc., is it that different?
Yeah, we're seeing that when the advertisers don't really care about the price. They care about whatever the result that you're measuring. So many campaigns that we're working on, we actually end up paying 300 to 400% more for the inventory on mobile and still deliver 300 to 400% better performance for the advertiser. So because instead of delivering it to everybody who you think can buy this product, you're actually delivering it to somebody who is most likely in the market for it. And all the waste that the publisher has can then take and sell more of these type of fragments to others that have more use for that type of consumer. So if it's done right, the performance is huge for the advertiser, and the lift for the publisher is also big.
So in that way, nothing has changed in the media industry. If we deliver results, then people keep buying, right? I mean, that's what we're all talking about, regardless of platform. Nobody in my role ever went broke making CMOs look good.
Yep.
Another question.
Yeah, there was 2 documents that came out of the White House last week that really documented that online privacy has been a market failure. And obviously, the online advertising has profited because of that lack of regulation, or it's been kind of a bit of the Wild West. Do you expect a level of regulation to be kicking in the next 12, 24, 36 months because of the failures to date in privacy? And if so, is that going to impact your particular businesses?
All I can tell you is that I don't think that's an issue that affects my business as much. Because we are of the web, are extraordinarily cautious in terms of making sure that we're never sharing some of that kind of data that's out there, what's called PII, right? Personally identifiable information. Because we are, again, that movement of 39 million young people who want to be in and of the web, we just can't play in that game. So that's not an area that touches us in the same way.
The key part of the privacy is that no PII, no use the personal identifiable information, but also that you are 100% transparent to the consumer about the information that you have. So when we're running ads, there's an ad as an icon in the top right corner that the consumer 100% of the time can actually click on, and they can get all transparent information about why is this ad relevant for me and those type of things. But it can also, there's a big red button there, you can also, as a consumer, you can opt out of actually getting any targeted ads. I don't think we're 100% there yet in terms of having the most sophisticated system as an industry, but that's definitely a step in the right direction. The one thing that consumers forget about is that you can't opt out of ads, right? So instead of seeing the ad for Mercedes, if you're in market for a car, you'll see a belly fat ad when you market for a car, right? So you'll end up as a consumer. So if done right, I think it has a real consumer benefit to actually have relevant advertising.
all right. That's it for the questions. Yeah, we're out of time.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.